We have 7 teams that are still undefeated. Well, technically 6.5, but who knows how these teams are going to do? And what does it really mean to be undefeated at this point? On the contrary, what does it mean to be completely winless at this point in time? This is Sports Hour. What is going on, guys? Alexander Thomas here. Welcome back to Game Time 124 Sports Hour. Alexander Thomas. It has been a very interesting couple of weeks. We're moving into week 5. We are about a third of the way through the season. Next week will be officially the third week, which will give us the opportunity to see who would be into the playoffs at that moment in time. That will be starting next week. But first off, let's take a look at how every team is doing. In the NBL North, it's still a pretty big fight between it. The team that we thought was going to do the best, it's actually been the worst so far. I mean, they haven't been terrible in the offensive position, but the Panthers and Cardinals both currently lead after we even thought the Cardinals were supposed to be pretty bad. Looking at the NBL North, looked at this. The prediction was the Panthers supposed to go 10-6. They're supposed to be 3-1 at this point. They are currently 4-0. The Knights at this point were supposed to be. They're supposed to be 1-3. They have been 3-1 so far. They've actually beaten the Night Foxes. Panthers and Foxes both beat the Knights. So they have put over position. The Legends were supposed to win the first 3 games of the season. They won the first game, and they've lost every game since then. So obviously the Lightning were not as good as they needed to, but they faced the Knights, they faced the Cardinals, and both those teams were able to put them in their place. The Dogs at this point in time are kind of in a mixed between. They have lost a few of their games. They did win overtime against the Tigers and win against the Packers, but both of those teams are pretty easy. They lost against the Cardinals, who were supposed to have lost every game at this point. But they have beaten every game, every team at this point. They had one of the hardest schedules, which made it more difficult to actually predict. You know what? But so far, the Cardinals have shown very well. They've actually beaten teams. They've already done better where they were supposed to do against. As for the NBL East, looking at the NBL East, it's been pretty interesting to see that the Bulldogs have gone 1-3 at this point. They were supposed to be 3-1 at this point, so they've done exactly the opposite of what they're supposed to do. As for the Angels, haven't won a game. I think that's completely wrong. I'm pretty sure the Angels have won games. I think you guys updated this wrong. Angels at this moment in time are 2-2. Yeah, okay. I marked a few of these wrong. This was a win. And we can confirm which week it was the Angels won. Angels beat the Bulldogs. Angels lost the Browns. Angels lost the Lynx. Angels did beat the Kings though this last week, which is why this is actually this one's wrong. It's supposed to be the other way around, 103-74. That was my bad. I make a few mistakes, of course, throughout the way. They have actually gone 2-2 at this point. They're actually doing not terribly. They've lost pretty badly against the Lynx, but otherwise they've actually done pretty well for the season. Browns are not looking terrible. They're 2-2 as well. Actually, rephrase that. They're not 2-2. The Browns are actually 1-3. I don't think they lost here. They lost here. Who else did they lose against? Because I think we had a little bit of messed up there too. Browns won here. They lost against the Huskies in week 1. We got that one right. Was it week 3 that they lost? Browns lost in week 3. Had it as a win apparently. They were supposed to win. They did end up losing that game. Because I have it in the wrong order. But anyways, there's going to be a few mistakes, of course, throughout this thing. But, you know, at this point, the Saints are not doing great. Lost in overtime. They've lost all their games at this point. They have one of the easiest schedules, too. They have not won a game yet. They've had some of the tough competition. Their easiest game was probably against the Falcons, to be honest. And the Falcons, at this point, are 3-1. They were supposed to lose 2 of their games, but they actually won. As for in the NBL West, the Pirates have been kind of interesting. As for this last week, Pirates did win against them, but they did lose last week against the Dragons. So it just comes down to a couple of things that come out. Kings have been back and forth. They've been bad, good, then bad, then good again. They did win. They actually won against the Kings. They did win that game. But you know, there's a few team hits. Ravens are doing. The Bears are doing decently. They're not doing great. They are currently 1-3. At this point, but they have actually won the last one. They actually won last week. It was in a surprising manner because they beat the Falcons, and no one expected them to beat them. Dragons are kind of on a lower end, but they have won the last 2 games. They are on a winning streak of 2, and the Indians have shocked everyone so far. Indians are supposed to be last in their division. They are currently first in their division. They've won 4 games. And if it keeps going like this, they beat the Dragons. If they beat them again this week, they'll have a clean sweep off of that one, which will mean that there's a very good chance that they'll win the division very soon. Probably when they finish playing against the Kings. In the NBL South, the Foxes have been kind of disappointing. Foxes were supposed to be good, being first. They have kind of lost their way. They were really good week 1 when they beat the Hawks. The Hawks have been terrible. and then they've lost every game since then. Now, that Panthers game was a pretty tough one, but they've lost against the Tigers, they've lost against the Knights, who weren't supposed to be that bad good. They've been pretty badly, and they played the Hawks again this week, and if they can't win that one, there's going to be some problems. Hawks have not won a game. They were supposed to win against the Athens. They lost. And fact is, they had their highest scoring game was the first week. And they have one of the lowest scoring ranked teams. Not the lowest right now, because there's another team that's literally lower. Then we have the Otters, and the Otters won their game. The Ravens have gone 3-0 to start off the season, and then they lost against the Otters. Then, of course, the Tigers did pretty well going into this point. They did lose this last week, but they're not doing terribly. They're doing decently. Giants haven't won a game yet. They tied against the Winless Cats. So if they can do really well and win this week, they might have a good chance of actually doing something in the division. Third is still probably their position. AFC, Winless Cats have kind of done well. They haven't lost a game yet. They tied against the Giants, but they've won quite a few games. Jets are half and half. Lightning supposed to have won. They haven't won a game yet. Yeah, this is a loss, by the way. Lightning have not won a game. Now I can just confirm that. I just want to confirm that. Yeah, Lightning have not won a game. So it's 99 to 105. That one was supposed to be a loss. I'll try to put it that way. So yeah, Werewolves have done decently. They tied in week 1, and then they have done actually pretty well against the Packers. They did pretty well against the Winless Cats. They did terribly against the Huskies. And Huskies are doing really well. Ethan, yeah. They tied, then they lost, then they won once. So they've done pretty well up to this point. Stars, they're supposed to have won 3 games straight, the first 3 games. They're the lowest scoring team in the NBL right now. Yeah, they are supposed to have won the first 3 games, and they lost all 4 of their games so far. Supermen have won all 4 of their games at this point. Huskies have won all 4 of their games at this point. Actually, I think the Supermen have lost 1 of their games, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Supermen did lose 1 of theirs. Which one was it? Yeah, it was this one. They were supposed to win that game, that's why. We had the Huskies. They've won out. They've actually scored about an average of 100 points in each one of those games. Beagles, not doing too hot right now. Actually, they're doing pretty decently, but they did lose against the Colts last week. Chargers, kind of struggling. They're going half and half. Warriors, really struggling. Supposed to have won 3 games straight, and then lose against the Panthers. They have lost all their games so far. Lynx have won all their games except for the one against the Otters, which went into overtime. Otters are undefeated at this point in time. Shocking us all right now. They were supposed to have lost the last 3 games. They're supposed to have won against the Bobcats and lost the last 3, but they're now 4-0. Packers, kind of struggling, not really doing much. They won against the Warriors, and the Warriors are kind of struggling pretty badly. And then the Lions are pretty tough. Techs are also undefeated right now, winning against some pretty decent teams, and then also winning against some not so decent teams. UNC, they lost that game. Yeah, they've lost every game so far. Bobcats, well, the Bobcats have have lost a game, then won a game, then lost pretty badly, then lost this one too. So they lost pretty badly last week just because of the context of how that scored. The Colts are back and forth, winning in overtime. Same thing with the Dolphins, who are back and forth, aren't, and all of them have done pretty well. Now, what it means at this point to be undefeated means that you have a pretty good chance of just winning the division in like 2 weeks from now. It's not too tough to actually do that. And right now, if we were looking at playoffs, I'm going to go ahead and see this. The Panthers and Cardinals would both be in it. The Panthers would have them one more seed. And actually, I'm just going to put them up here. Panthers would have the number 1 seed. And honestly, it's not really surprising. They would have the number 1 seed. I'm not going to go about the record wise. What happened? Okay, what team's in that division? Pirates in that division. There you go. The Indians would be the number 2 seed. And honestly, it's not surprising any of those. Currently, the Ravens would be the number 3 seed, followed up by Falcons. Now, to decide who would be in the playoff slots, the Cardinals would be the 5th seed. I think it's pretty obvious would be the 5th seed. Then it's such a tough decide who would be in the next one. I believe, looking at the points, Knights. It's the Tigers, I think. Yeah, the Tigers would be the 6th seed. The Knights would be and then finally the Pirates would sneak into the playoffs as the 8th seed. Those would be the teams that are in the playoffs currently if you were to start it. Now, we're not really going to look at their actual positions and all that until next week. But right now, it's pretty interesting to see how those teams would actually work. On the other side, the team that would be in first place right now is actually interesting because there's actually 2 teams. The Otters currently would be, the Texans would be the number 1 seed. I believe, right? Because the Tex would be the number 1 seed. The Otters would be the number 2 seed. And there's a reason why. The Huskies would be the number 3 seed. And the Leland Cats would be the number 4 seed. As of right now. Then it comes to a really big fight between who actually gets into the next seed, because the next seed, I believe, would be the Lynx. who would be the 5th seed. The Supermen would be the 6th seed. The Beagles, no, it'd be the Lions would be the 7th seed, I believe, because Beagles would be the next seed. And the Lions would be the last seed. And of course, and it's so close to really say this, though. The Athens are this close to actually being into that playoffs punt right now. Those would be the teams that would be currently in the playoffs if you looked at it right now. Also, I'm not really going to go into what would have to happen for anything because it's too early in the season. Let's look at Week 5. Week 5 is a pretty lopsided week. Okay, speaking of which, I forgot about showing you about last week's. Last week, I'm still currently first, but I'm only first by a few points. I'm currently 80% win rate, so I'm doing pretty well. This week is going to be, I think, a pretty lopsided week for most of the teams because the context is just not much to actually look at. Starting off with, can you go into the game week, please? Thank you. Week number 1 on Saturday at 11 o'clock. The Cardinals and Dogs play. This is a tough one for me, even though the Cardinals are favored by a long shot. I am really sorry to say that I think this is going to be the first Cardinal loss. And I'm going to pick, against everyone else's predictions, the Dogs to win this week. I think the Dogs are going to show up a lot better than when they actually did. Sure, they don't have the best positions for that, and the positions for the actual hits do put the Dogs a whole lot lower than that, according to their rankings. The Dogs are actually pretty good in their offense rankings. They're better than it. They're not so hot in their defense. I think that's what's going to come down to, which I think might be the reason the Cardinals actually win this game. The Supermen and the Stars. Stars have done nothing. And I think it's very obvious the Supermen are going to win that game. They're plus 59. 59-point prediction. And considering that the Stars have not done anything, I mean, looking at the Stars' current rankings, Stars right now are almost dead last in both positions. They're not dead last in defense, but I think they are dead last in offense. And I think it's pretty sad because between the Hawks and them, they're just really not good. Supermen win that game. Dolphins and Colts. This is a tough one because the Colts and Dolphins both are in a pretty good position. 11 o'clock on Sunday. It's just tough for me to say yes. Now, looking at their positions, they're in the same division. So, Colts are 2-2 right now, 21st and 31st. The Dolphins have the third best defense, which I think is what's going to make them, yes. Sure, their offense isn't great, but I think with that defense, they're going to be able to stay ahead. Browns and Legends. Legends are predicted by 7, sorry. I did not do that right. I feel like the Browns are doing a lot better than the Bulldogs. I mean, sure, the Bulldogs are not exactly in the best position, but Legends, they're doing terrible. they're only doing well in offense, and they're just not winning their games when it comes down to it. I have to say, I think the Legends are just not going to do it. I'm going for the Browns this week. Foxes and Hawks. The Hawks are another team that just does it. Now, Foxes are kind of slow, are really not working out well either. I mean, looking at the Foxes' stats, they're not good. Hawks are worse. Way worse. It's the Foxes that win this game. No doubt. Lions and Packers. This is actually, I think, going to be a very tough matchup. Even though the Lions are predicted by it, I actually think there's a potential chance that the Packers come out and win this game. I mean, Packers. Let's see. Packers did barely lose against the Dogs, and they ended up beating team 2 weeks ago. I lost the Packers here. Because they beat them, but seriously, they were not good. I think it's going to be tough to put the Lions in. I'm going to pick the Packers this week. I think the Packers are going to show more stats than they might actually send. I don't think the Packers are going to be great. I think it's going to be a very close game. But, yes. Panthers and Knights. Oh, boy. The fact that this is the game of the week. It's not the game of the week, thank God. That is probably the closest game of the week we're going to get. It's, I think, probably number 2. Yeah, so it was number 2. The problem is divisional. That's the only reason. I'm going with the Panthers here, but I do think the Knights have a good chance of winning this game. Ravens and Bobcats. Ravens win this game. There's just no chance that it's... Ravens are up by 63. Bobcats are just not showing up at all. The Bulldogs and Angels. Let me know when I get to the end of the week. It's tough, man. But the Angels have shown up a little bit. Bulldogs haven't really. I'm going to go with the Angels here. And Dragons and Indians. Indians are on fire right now. Here's the difference, though, with the Indians. Indians are 16-12. Dragons and Indians. So they're actually pretty well matched up. It's tough for me to say this. I'm going to give the Indians another win, but after this week, it might be tough for them to have another win off that. Pirates and Kings, they're exact opposite teams. Tigers and Giants. That's not the game of the week. Tigers win this game. Unfortunately, I don't think the Giants are getting quite in. They're going to be 0-4 and 1. Perhaps maybe they'll come back and they'll do something, but the Tigers are just too good right now. Pirates and Kings. It's a tough one between the Kings. The Kings did come back and win a pretty good game for this one, but I'm going to go with the Pirates winning this game. Chargers and Beagles. This is the game of the week. No, it's not the game of the week. We're getting close to it, though. I'm going to say this is a close one, but I'm going to go with the Chargers winning this week. I think even though the points here are going to the Beagles just did not show their stats last week. They lost pretty badly against a team that wasn't great. So I'm going to go with the Beagles winning this week. I'm going to go with the Beagles losing this week. Jets and Leland Cats. They're not saying this. They are confirming this is the game of the week. And honestly, I think this is a pretty good one. Undefeated, tangly. 3-0, 3-1 to the Jets. This is, I think, a divisional matchup, too, though. So it is a tough one. Leland Cats and Jets are both pretty heavily matched. They both have pretty decent offenses and both pretty good defenses. It's going to be a tough one. I'm going to go with the Cats here, but I think this is a very close game. This is going to be a very close game that happens on Sunday. And then the Falcons, we are just going to have to go with the Falcons. There's just no way the Saints are going to be able to come back. They're getting closer. They are getting closer. I will say this. Saints right now are doing decently. They're just not quite in a position where they are actually within grasp of actually clinching winning Division 2 in like 2 weeks. All right. Otters and Bears, gotta go with the Otters here. I don't think the Bears are gonna have quite what they need to. I think it's gonna be a close game, but it's gonna be it, which is why it's an Otter. The other game that could easily be in the game of the week was the Werewolves and Athens game. Tough one. And this was the game they tied in the first time they faced each other, which gave us points. I'm going to say that this is actually going to be a close one. It's going to be a close game. If you're looking at week 1 where they faced off against each other and tied, it was 1-1. Werewolves only picked by 1 in that game. Well, guess what? The Athens are predicted by a whole lot more in this game. I'm going with the Athens winning this game. I think this could easily be another tie, though. I think we got to say when you're faced with a team goes from a 0 and 4 versus a 4-0 team, that team's going to win every time. There's just no way. Huskies are predicted plus 46. Now, granted, it's not much better than the next two, because both those are pretty much lopsided games too. Lynx win this one, and Tex win this one. Because look at this. These are both. Look at all these 0. These are all 0-4 teams. Bold that, please. They're all 0-4 teams. They're all facing. Look at this. There's only 1 loss between all of them. There's 12 losses between all of these. The fact that this is on Monday doesn't mean much to me, and I think honestly this is going to be the way it's going to work. I think these are going to be interesting weeks for some of these teams, and I do think that some of these teams are going to do well. And I will point out, there is a lot of things about points that matter. And the team that has the most points is, of course, the Panthers. Panthers' average last season was 116. There's only a few teams that have higher than that. The Lynx have higher than that. The Panthers obviously have higher than that. And the Cravens. There's only 3 teams that have higher than what their prediction was from last season. It's going to be interesting. The Panthers, of course, have the number 1 offense. And I think right now this is going to be a very interesting week. Of course, I think a lot of games are going to be lopsided. I think only the ones that are close are going to be pretty interesting. The other ones, not so confident in. Anyways, those are my predictions for this week. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video and see you next week for the next Sports Hour episode. Moving on for week 6, we'll have the actual predictions. Well, I'm going to talk about the actual playoff scenes. See you guys next week. That is it for Sports Hour.